Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours, with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and well, we're in something quite rare and a little unusual today, but something that was once very modern and super futuristic. But I'll start this review with a question. What would you say is the greatest Anglo-French project of all time? Concorde? The Channel Tunnel? I'd say no. It was this, the Chrysler Alpine, otherwise known as a Simca or Talbot 1300. Because this is the pinnacle of what was the Roots Group, nay Chrysler Europe, pre-PSA Peugeot Citroen, working together to create something that really was as good as it got in 1976. At least as family cars go. But before we go any further, I just want to say, if you enjoy reviews of interesting and unusual rare cars, then please do hit like and smash, I tell you, smash the subscribe button to find more of these things. And this particular car, this actual vehicle, is currently for sale at Stone Cold Classics. So hit the link in the description below if you're interested. It's not even that much money. It's a lot of fun for not much cash. So anyway, on with the review. Chrysler Europe wanted to replace their slightly older fleet of cars. The Simcas, the Hillmans, they were looking a bit dated. Front engine, rear wheel drive. I wouldn't say stodgy, but certainly saloons from an earlier era. They wanted something new and modern, cutting edge. They could go into the 1980s looking exciting and fresh. In his Ryton studios near Coventry, Roy Axe, legendary car designer, was set to work designing a modern front-engine, front-wheel drive hatchback design, the perfect family car for the future. Meanwhile, over in Poissy in France, the engineering team was hard at work, making it happen under the skin. Let's pull over and have a quick look around outside this car, because you need to see the metallic brown of this car. It is fantastic. Honestly, it's amazing. So let's look around at the outside of this amazing 1970s slice of brilliant brownness. My big question today is, why isn't everything metallic brown? Because frankly, this is just the best. I would happily paint my modern car metallic brown, this exact colour right now, if I could. It's only money stopping me, frankly. But anyway, the outside of the car was very, very modern and exciting and different, perhaps too different for the British market, I have to say. It was designed by Roy Axe, who was a bit of an unsung genius of the British motor industry. He designed so many cars. He did the Hunter, the Avenger, the Tagora, he did the Rover R8, he did the Rover 800, a bunch of Rover concept cars. His fingers were in so many pies, and all of them were good. But what really made this car stand out is the layout and the format. First of all, it's front engine, front wheel drive. So many of its contemporaries and the cars it replaced were front engine, rear wheel drives. This is very modern indeed. Secondly, obviously it's a four-door family car, but it's a five-door hatchback, not a saloon. Again, very exciting, very avant-garde. Not many cars were taking that path yet. It was the future, but too many people didn't realise it back in the mid-70s. The Maxi was out there already, and that was fighting the hatchback fight for British Leyland, but it wasn't as pretty as this. And of course, the Rover SD1 was still a little way away, just a few months away still when this came out. And that, though, was another price point and car size above this. Again, a difficult sell, being one of the first big executive cars in hatchback format. Anyway, this made it super practical, super safe, and the styling is also super modern. This is the essence of the late 70s, early 80s cutting edge design. The planning for this model started back in 1972, and it was intended to replace the Hillman Hunter, the Hillman Avenger, and the Simca 1500 and 1501, all very traditional saloon rear-wheel drive cars. Interestingly though, in France, everything it replaced was deleted. In England, because it's far more of a, well, cautious buying public, our Hillman options were still available for quite a long time, because look what happened to Triumph when they brought out the front-wheel drive version of the 1300, and they had to go and make a rear-wheel drive version. They had to reverse engineer the car to make it less advanced to suit the buying public. It's a big competition for this car with things like the Cortina and the Marina or Ital. It wasn't until things like the Cavalier and the Sierra came out in the early 80s, nearly a decade later, that we were looking at a similar kind of competition. So this was such an advanced car. Around the car we do have some rather fabulous details, like these pressed steel wheels with the plastic, well, actual hubcap, because it only covers the hub. We've got contrast colour bumpers and these lovely bezel-topped headlights as well. Okay, under the delicious metallic chocolate brown bonnet we find this, the venerable Poissy engine, a product of the car's French lineage. The Poissy have been in so many Roots, Chrysler, Talbot, Simca cars over the years. This, because it's the 1300, the 1.3, is a 1292cc, meaning it's also known as the Simca Talbot 1307. The bigger engine, 1442cc, was known as the 1308 in the Simca terms. There was also a 1309 with a later, bigger still engine. In this version though, we have 66 horsepower and 107 newton meters of torque, meaning it'll go 0 to 60 in 14.7 seconds and has a top speed of 96, although realistically it's most comfortable around 60. Gosh, a glass bottle under the bonnet, I always think that's so dangerous. Now, stepping aboard the car, you'll notice these door handles are actually solid bits of metal. You can't move them. You put your hand inside and squeeze the inner flap. And we do have a full stainless steel surround on the window, only trim of course, and a stainless steel B-post trim, making the thing look a little bit classier than your average Ford or Vauxhall competition. Inside the car, you can tell we've gone up market. Even though this is the 1970s, we are now not seeing body colour paint, or barely, only a tiny bit around the rim of the door, but we've got a full door card. And the top of that door card is matching the metallic brown elephant hide moulded to the top of the door, even with moulding which follows, look on the passenger side, the shape of the dashboard into the door. That's such a cohesive, well thought through piece of design. Moving down, separating the darker brown with this beige soft touch vinyl, we've got a little satin trim piece, a nice bit of chrome surround on the door handle, which is a bit of plastic, and a chrome winder as well for the obviously manual windows. But we do have a nice armrest door pull combined with a nice chrome surround in a triangular lozenge shape, but fake stitching moulded into the texture, so it looks like it's a hand-stitched leather item, but it's not, it's moulded. At the bottom of it, the kick protection is this carpeted area here, also in beige, with a door speaker mounted in the bottom as well, which does actually look kind of factory. Stepping over the kick plates, which are moulded to kind of semi-hide the runners of the seats, interestingly. Check out this fabulous fabric. Now, 90s fabrics are my absolute favourite, but this is checkerboard velour in light and dark gold, and we've got mounting points for headrests, so we've got the full opportunity to have actual safety. Ahead of the driver we do have a reasonable T-shelf. We've got a small caramel coloured biscuit area with the air vents for the window and a slight slope here. This is very French, this whole area here. We've got the brown elephant hide topping. It's got a hard material, not too hard but not very soft either, but it's got a full length vent. This is absolutely astonishing, and these little movers here, little levers, can direct the airflow up and down. That is just astonishing. That is the full width of the dashboard, blowing air at you with a little mini T-shelf just there. This is one of the most Anglo-French cars out there, so I can only imagine a croissant with marmalade being the perfect accompaniment to go just there. We've got a nicely sized, interestingly sized glove box, but we do have two cup holders. I'm very, very concerned now because this label is a legal requirement on this vehicle. Do not remove. I'm very worried what will happen if I take it off. Will the police be called instantly and I'll be carted off to jail? I better not risk it. So in front of the driver we have quite a busy area of instruments. We've got rev counter redlining 6.5, we've got the speedo going up to 120, and in typical posh 1970s car style we've got 4 subdials, clock, temperature, petrol, oil, and a whole bank of warning lights. Design-wise it all works, it just looks a little tiny bit busy, and this is in a nice rectangular rhomboid shaped surround with yet more air ventage. No one's going home suffocated in this car. Down to the left, do any of our younger viewers know what this is? Yes, it's a choke because it's a manual carburettor. And we have the spindliest little stalks you ever did see for indicators, lights and wipers. And also a single stalk steering wheel. Isn't that cool? Very, very Chrysler, little Pentastar staring back at you like the Eye of Sauron from the middle of that. Over to the left, we have quite a nice little central dashboard area. This feels very modern indeed for 1976 when the car came out. This is a 1979 car. Got a lighter socket, 12 volts for your sat-nav, 2-speed fan, heater control, funny little ashtray and more heater controls, and this nice little bank of square push buttons. Underneath that, a radio, a Pi Major 6 medium and long wave radio. Isn't that cool? And this is the height of luxury and sophistication back in the 70s. We've got a centre console surrounding the gear shift with a place to put odds and ends. That is not something your run-of-the-mill car had. That is posh. Also has 4-speed manual gearbox, manual handbrake with a dip in the centre for your knuckles. On the left-hand side, just look how much space there is for activities. All the room for activities in the world, and even a sub-T shelf for extra parcelage. And in the back of the car, we have more of the same elephant hide, vinyl, etc. And of course, the addition of an ashtray in the back, because it wouldn't be the 70s if everyone wasn't smoking. And that's an interesting caramel beige. The seats in the back are, of course, the same with the nice, lovely velour. The seat's quite a long way back in the front. It's a little tight getting in. Actually, not too bad when it comes to headroom, and we've got grab handles and hooks in the back, and interestingly, parcel shelf. And if you want to get super clever and technical, these back seats do actually fold forward, but I don't know how, so I'm not going to break it figuring it out. And don't get too excited by the GL badge. Grand Lux was the bottom of the tree, admittedly quite a well-appointed tree. That's the 70s, so I opened the boot with the key, not the same key as you start the car with, of course. Up goes the tailgate. That is actually very exciting for 1979, and of course we have a lift-up tail. Oh, look at the hinge action on that. Oh, the pivot, the cantilever and pivot, that is just remarkable. That's just lovely. And with that pivoted back, we've got a great big boot. We've even got some genuine spares of carpet, I think, in there. Big boot, wide access, flat floor. Because French, the spare wheel is actually hanging from the boot floor on the outside, so if you do get a flat tire when you're loaded up with all your holiday stuff, you don't have to empty the boot to find it. Heated rear window and everything. This is the height of luxury. Ooh, 2-speed wipers. Nice, and headlights, lovely. 2-speed headlights. So on the road, it does feel remarkably modern. Bear in mind this car is 1979. So it's basically 89, 99, 2009, 2019. It's 45 years old. But because of the layout of the thing, it feels so very modern. I mean, it's not brisk. That 0 to 60 time is no joke. It does take a while to haul itself up to any kind of decent speed. But 50 miles an hour, and it feels so planted and composed. Wayne says he drove back on the motorway at 70 miles an hour. It didn't really feel quite as happy as it had done at these kind of 50, 60 speeds. But that's really because of the gearbox. It's only a 4-speed. You're always just hoping or wanting to go for that imaginary fifth that isn't there. But the gear change, quite a long wand of a shifter just there. But you kind of flobbles through the gears quite happily. A little bit rubbery finding your way initially, but once you know where you're going, oh my goodness, look at that Porsche. That is so cool. Yeah, it's a little rubbery finding first, and once you're in the pattern, it's actually very easy indeed. Pedals a little bit heavy. There's quite a push on the accelerator to get it all the way down. From the driver's seat, it's a really fun thing to be in on a B road, because the steering, although it's a little heavy, it's not power assisted. It's very precise, it's sharp. The car really does go where you point it. There's a fair bit of roll. If I do that again, you can sort of see the car like a ship at sea. Like a cross-channel ferry taking on water, as one traffic officer described the handling of his BMW X5. Sums this up perfectly. But the brakes are steady and even. You hit the pedal and it just comes to a halt. It's not brisk, but it feels fast enough. And this car's only got 54,000 miles on it, and it's been really well looked after, so it's not tappety and noisy. It's pretty smooth, really. It's quite a relaxing drive. If you don't mind not going fast, you can cover a lot of ground in this car and have a lot of fun doing it. And of course, revel in all of the brown. But that ventilation is just stupendous. You don't really feel like a blast of air, but you feel like a circulation, a current of air going around you, which is nice. And the visibility with this great big glass house is so good. You don't feel penned in or claustrophobic, and you can just see everywhere. That great big rear window is brilliant. It really is no wonder this car won European Car of the Year in 1976. And it was a popular seller. They shifted them by the bucket load on the continent and around the rest of the world. a popular car, if not a bestseller here in the UK. But the car kind of became a victim of the internal politics of its own manufacturer, because where it had been roots, it became Chrysler, then it became PSA Peugeot Citroen, and so the public didn't really know what they were buying. It got very confusing. In late 1979, this was rebadged as the Talbot Alpine instead of the Chrysler Alpine, so a little bit of buyer's confusion just there. But they kept on building it until 1985 in Ryton here in the UK, when it gave way to the production line for the Peugeot 309. 1986 in Poissy in France, where it was sort of replaced by the Citroen BX and the Peugeot 405, both of which were already on the market. But it was another of these kind of unexpected world cars, because they built it absolutely everywhere. Apart from the UK and France, it was built by Saab Valmet for the Finnish and Danish markets. Incidentally, they started putting Saab interior components in there, and they were the only one to offer a diesel using the XUD unit later on in the production. It was built in Madrid, it was built in Bogota, and it was built in New Zealand, basically all over the world. Sadly though, because the manufacturer that made it is no longer around to support it and lend any kind of modern credence or throwbacks with modern models, like the Capri, new EV Capri, that brings that name to the fore for people who don't know what the old Capri was. That's never going to happen for the Alpine, because if you say Alpine now, you think of the little Renault sports car. Which is sad, because this is a car which led the way. It was so much more advanced than the Cortinas that were still being made years and years after this came onto the market. Yet the Cortina, you pay Ford tax for a Cortina through the nose. This is a far better car, if I'm brutally honest, and yet it's virtually forgotten. Hardly any left. Show one of these to a young person today, they won't know what they're staring at. But I hope you've enjoyed this ride out in this astonishingly rare and wonderful to drive little slice of Anglo-French perfection, hatchback perfection. If you have, hit like and subscribe, and join us again next time driving something completely different.